If you ask any gamer about the most emotionally powerful stories ever told in video games, The Last of Us is bound to come up. This franchise isn't just known for its groundbreaking gameplay or stunning visuals, it's celebrated for its raw, unforgettable narrative, its complex characters, and its exploration of the human condition in a world ravaged by an apocalyptic infection. Over the past decade, The Last of Us has become a cornerstone of gaming culture and a beloved saga in entertainment. In this video, we'll dive into the complete history of The Last of Us, from its origins and cultural impact to its expansions and adaptations into TV. Join us as we explore the emotional highs, lows, and twists that have made this series a true masterpiece. The history of The Last of Us begins in the early 2010s at Naughty Dog, the legendary studio behind the Uncharted series. After the massive success of Uncharted 2, the team at Naughty Dog was itching to create something new, but they didn't want to just make another action-adventure game with an exciting treasure hunt. They wanted to build a world that felt authentic, personal, and, above all, deeply emotional. The idea for The Last of Us came to life when Neil Druckmann, a young game designer and writer at Naughty Dog, started working on a new project. His concept was simple but powerful. What if a game could explore what it means to survive in a world where everything has fallen apart? But not just survive. What if it was about survival at a cost? What if it was about the people you choose to protect and the relationships you form amidst chaos? Druckmann envisioned a gritty, post-apocalyptic setting, but rather than focusing on grand world-saving missions, the story would revolve around personal connections. In his mind, the relationship between two characters, Joel, a hardened survivor, and Ellie, a teenage girl with the potential to save humanity, would be the emotional heart of the game. The idea wasn't just to tell a story of survival, it was to create a world where the human element was at the center. Players would experience how love, grief, betrayal, and hope played out in the midst of catastrophe. With the concept in place, the team at Naughty Dog dove into development. The game's world would be a decayed version of America, left in ruins by the outbreak of the cordyceps brain infection, a fungal plague that turns its victims into zombie-like creatures. As players explored this hauntingly beautiful landscape, they would encounter not just monsters, but desperate humans, some of whom were more dangerous than the infected. But the game wasn't just about exploring dangerous environments, it was about the bond between Joel and Ellie. The two characters were brought to life by incredible voice acting and motion capture performances. Troy Baker's portrayal of Joel and Ashley Johnson's performance as Ellie became iconic, capturing the complex layers of their characters. Their interactions were more than just dialogue, they were intimate, real, and emotional, giving players a sense of connection to these two survivors. As the game's development continued, the team at Naughty Dog realized that the story wasn't just about the infected, it was about how people respond to a broken world. Joel, a man hardened by loss, would be forced to navigate the complexities of fatherhood and guilt. Ellie, a girl who had grown up in this post-apocalyptic world, would have to learn to trust, to fight, and ultimately to understand the costs of survival. The team wanted the gameplay to complement this storytelling, making it feel realistic, tense, and deeply personal. They balanced exploration, stealth, and combat in ways that would force players to think carefully about their choices. Ammo was scarce, and every encounter with the infected or other survivors felt like a matter of life or death. When The Last of Us was finally released in June 2013, the world was ready for a new kind of gaming experience. It was gritty, emotional, and stunning in its detail. When The Last of Us hit shelves in 2013, it was clear that something special had been created. Critics and players alike hailed the game as a masterpiece, citing its emotional depth, its immersive world, and its unforgettable characters. It was a game that wasn't just about the fun of playing, it was a game that made players feel. The critical acclaim came in waves. The Last of Us won numerous Game of the Year awards, and the story, voice acting, and technical achievements were celebrated across the industry. The game's story was unlike anything seen in gaming before. It didn't just ask you to survive, it asked you to confront your emotions, to question what you would do in the face of moral dilemmas, and to reckon with the consequences of your actions. The ending in particular was a gut punch. It was both heartbreaking and thought-provoking, leaving players to grapple with a series of ethical questions that would stick with them long after the game ended. But the success of The Last of Us wasn't just critical, it was commercial. The game sold over 17 million copies by 2018, solidifying its place as one of the best-selling and most influential games of all time. After years of anticipation, The Last of Us Part 2 was released in June 2020. The sequel continued the story of Ellie, but it did so with a bold new direction. No longer a simple story of survival, The Last of Us Part 2 explored themes of vengeance, trauma, and forgiveness, taking the franchise into darker and more complex emotional territory. The game's narrative was a daring departure from the original. In Part 2, players spent much of the game controlling Ellie as she hunted down Abby, a woman responsible for a life-altering event. This shift in perspective and the intense emotional stakes left many players reeling, as they were forced to confront the consequences of their actions in ways that were morally ambiguous and devastating. The game's themes of hatred, revenge, and the emotional toll of living in a brutal world made it one of the most talked about releases of the year. It wasn't a simple continuation of the first game's plot, it was a story about the cost of living with trauma and the consequences of seeking vengeance. Despite some controversy over the story choices, The Last of Us Part 2 was universally praised for its technical achievements, emotional depth, and narrative bravery. It went on to win numerous awards, including multiple Game of the Year honors, solidifying its place as one of the most impactful games of the decade. But The Last of Us wasn't just confined to gaming. The success of the franchise led to an expansion into other media, with the most prominent being the HBO television series, which premiered in 2023. Created by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, the series closely followed the events of the first game, with Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. The TV series was met with overwhelming praise, and for good reason. It captured the essence of the game while expanding on certain aspects of the story and introducing new elements that added depth to the world of The Last of Us. The performances, particularly from Pascal and Ramsey, were lauded for their emotional intensity, and the series brought the world of The Last of Us to a broader audience. From its humble beginnings as a video game to its transformation into a cultural phenomenon, The Last of Us has become much more than just a game. It has become a landmark of storytelling in the world of entertainment, a saga that challenges players to confront deep moral questions and to feel the emotional weight of its narrative. Whether you're playing the original game, experiencing the remastered version, or watching the HBO series, the legacy of The Last of Us is undeniable. It's a reminder that video games can be more than just entertainment. They can be a powerful form of art that moves us, challenges us, and forces us to think. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the complete history of The Last of Us. It's a story about survival, loss, love, and what it means to be human in the face of unimaginable odds. If you've enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the world of gaming.